Okay, so today we're going to be learning about vertical angles. Okay, we're going to learn some information about vertical angles that's going to help us solve problems with vertical angles in them. Okay, remember what we're working on in this unit is solving problems about angles where we're trying to find either like a missing value for the angle or we're trying to solve for x in the angle, right? So we're learning about all these different types of angles, okay, and vertical angles is the new type that we're going to learn about today. Okay, before we talk about what a vertical angle is, what I want to review with you is one key word, okay, and that key word is this one, it's congruent. Can you guys say that word? Congruent. What does congruent mean? What do you guys know about that word that it means? I hear a lot of people saying the same, I'm hearing equal, okay? Same value, okay, good. All right, so when we're talking about angles, when we would talk about angles being congruent, it's having the same size and measurement, okay? So when we're talking about angles being congruent, they are having the same size and measurement. Okay? Yes?
Is it alright if I like write it in one of my
Sure, that's fine. Okay, so there's a symbol that represents congruent, okay? So let's say, for example, I had the angle ABC, and it was the same size as angle, I don't know, DEF. To show that these are the same size, I use this symbol. It's like an equals with a squiggle on top. That symbol says congruent. Okay, and we actually read this where we say is congruent to. Okay, so we would say here angle ABC is congruent to angle DEF. And that would mean that those two angles have the same measurement, right? So if I told you like ABC was 20 degrees, its measure, how much is the measure of DEF? 20 degrees, right? Same size, okay? So when we see this symbol, it's read is congruent to. Okay, that's what the words we say when we see that. All right? Okay, so now that we've kind of reviewed this, let's talk about vertical angles. Okay, vertical angles are opposite angles formed by intersecting lines. Okay? So they're opposite angles formed by intersecting lines. Let's draw a picture of this, okay? So, draw intersecting lines. What does intersecting mean? Crossing, right? Okay, so let's draw a set of lines that's crossing. Okay? And vertical angles are the angles that are opposite of each other, okay? So remember, adjacent means side by side. So if I were to label every angle in here like 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? Angle 1 and 2 are adjacent, right? So which one is opposite of 1? 3, okay? So we would say angle 1 and angle 3 are vertical angles. I'm going to do a little abbreviating there. Do you guys know what I mean when I write this? Vertical angles. Okay. All right, so what's another set of vertical angles that we see in this picture right here? What other angles?
2 and 4.
Yeah, 2 and 4. Okay. So angle 2 and angle 4 are also vertical angles. Okay. Okay, now whenever we have vertical angles, something special happens with those vertical angles. Okay? So there's something that we call the vertical angle theorem. okay? And before we write this theorem down, I'm going to kind of try to show you guys this, like, with some objects. So you can kind of get the gist of this, okay? Okay, so let's say I have these two pencils. These are my two lines, okay? And I'm going to make them intersect. So here they are intersecting. They kind of look like what I have here, right? They kind of look like where I have angle 1, angle 2, angle 3, angle 4, right? What happens when I tilt this line? What's happening to angle 1 and angle 3? Angle 1 is getting smaller, but what happens to angle 3? Is it also getting smaller? Yeah. What happens as I tilt them this way? What's happening to angle 1 and what's happening to angle 3? What's happening? They're getting bigger and bigger. Are they getting equally as big? Yeah. Now what's happening with angle 4 and angle 2? Are they changing size as well? But their size is changing the same way, right? So what's happening with our vertical angles when we move these lines is that they're changing at an equal amount, right? 1 and 3 are the same size. And what's happening with 2 and 4? They're also changing, same size, right? Okay. So there's a theorem called the vertical angle theorem that says if angles are vertical angles, then they are congruent. Okay? So if we have angles and they are vertical angles, which means they are formed by intersecting lines and they're opposites of each other, then those two angles must be congruent. Okay? Did you guys like my new pencils? Could you guys tell what that one was? I know it's hard to tell, but I think it's supposed to be a hedgehog. You want me to zoom in on it so you guys can see it? Can you see it? Can you tell?
Oh, yeah, the little heart hedgehogs.
Mrs. Kelly gave them to me today. This was the highlight of my morning. After sitting in the traffic, you know, getting hedgehog pencils was the highlight of my morning. Okay. All right. Okay, so now that we know all these things about vertical angles, we're going to go through and do a few practice problems with vertical angles, okay? So here's your first example. Okay, and I'm sorry that you guys have to do all this drawing today, okay? I had a note sheet, but like I said, the copy machine was not working this morning. Okay, so draw some intersecting lines. We're going to call this angle 1, 2, 3, and then this one, label it 124 degrees. Okay, and we are going to find the measure of each angle there. All right. So remember the difference between naming an angle and measuring an angle, right? If it's a number without a degree sign, that's just a number so we can name the angle. So we can call it like angle 1, angle 2, right? If there's a number with a degree sign, that's not naming the angle. That's telling us how big that angle is, okay? So how big is this angle right here? 124, okay? Now, I could very easily say that which one is its opposite angle? 1, 2, or 3? 2. So I know that this one right here is congruent to this one here. I want you to draw one arc on each of those to show that they are congruent to each other, okay? So the measure of angle 2, I've just found this out, is 124 degrees. I know at least that much, right? That's probably the easier one to find, okay? Now, we're going to go back to something we learned yesterday, okay? to help us find these other angles. All right? So let's say I covered this up like this. What kind of pair is that making? They're adjacent, and how much do they add up to? Y. What is this called? Supplementary. There's another name, since they're adjacent. You guys remember? Linear pair. Linear pair, okay? So these are a linear pair, so how could I find the measure of angle 1 if this linear pair is supplementary? Subtract from 180, okay? So to find the measure of angle 1, I'll do a little scratch work over here. 180 minus 124. Okay, let's see what we get for that. Okay, so what do you guys get for that? 56. Okay, so now I know the measure of angle 1 is 56 degrees. Okay, but if I want to find the measure of angle 3, do I need to subtract again? No, because what do I know about angles 1 and 3? Yeah, these are vertical angles, and if they're vertical angles, they're congruent. So draw 2 arcs on each of those to represent they're congruent, right? And then we can say this one's the same size. It's also 56 degrees. Okay, does that make sense there? Now, this way of drawing these arcs, okay, when you label an angle like this one with 1 arc and this one with 1 arc, that typically means those are congruent. Okay, if you do 2 arcs here and 2 arcs here, that means those ones are congruent. Okay, are there questions on that? Okay, so that was our first example. Let's try another one. Okay, I'll have you guys try this one on your own. So the directions are the same. You're going to find the measure of each angle. Okay, and here's your picture. So you can copy this down. So that wasn't so bad, right? Everyone did okay on that, so we can move on. Okay, I'm going to flip my page because I'm out of room. Okay. All right. Okay, so what example are we on? 3? Okay. So, for example 3, so go ahead and write that one down. Okay, so in this problem, it's asking us to solve for y, right? There's no number, there's only expressions here. I don't have any actual numbers, okay? So let's go ahead and see what we know. Well, we know that we were given an expression here and an expression here, right? How are these two angles related to each other? What kind of angles are they? They're congruent because they are vertical angles, right? They're formed by intersecting lines and they're opposite angles, so they're congruent. So let's mark them congruent. This one, same size as this one, okay? Now, what can we do with measurements if we know they are congruent? Congruent means that their measures are the same, right? So with things that are the same, we can set those equal, right? So let's go ahead and set this one equal to this one, okay? So I'm going to set up 4y minus 42 is equal to 2y. And then I'm going to go ahead and solve this. Okay? So when we go to solve this, I want to get the y's together on the same side. So I'll subtract this one so it can come over here. Okay, so now I get negative 42 equals negative 2y. And then how would I isolate y from here? Divide by what kind of 2? Negative 2 on both sides. Okay, so what is negative 42 divided by negative 2? 21. Okay, so I've answered the question because the question wanted me to solve for y. Y is equal to 21. Okay, now let's say there were some letters like naming this angle, like let's say this angle is called ABC, and it wanted to know the measure of ABC. What would I then do if it wanted me to find the measure of angle ABC, if that were called ABC? What would I do with this? What would I do with this number that I found? Yeah, plug it back in, right? Okay, I would plug it back in if I wanted to know this angle here. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, let's try another one. Okay, let's try this one. What example are we on? 4? Okay. On this one, we are going to solve for x and y. Okay. Yes. It's asking us to solve for x and y. Okay, so what do you guys want to solve for first? X or y? Y? Okay, so what I would do is I would look at y, and if you have a regular number without a variable, I would look at that angle as well. And I would look at these two angles and think about how are they related. So how are these two angles related to each other right here? They're vertical, so they are what? Congruent. So let's mark them congruent. Now, if I know that they're congruent, what can I do with them? Set them equal, right? So let's go ahead and set them equal. So y plus 23 is equal to 63. Okay, so now how am I going to solve that for y? Subtract 23, right? Okay, so now that I've subtracted, what is the value of y? 40? Okay, now that's just one of my answers here, okay? The other answer has to come from solving for x, okay? So now what we need to do is we need to look at the angle with x and the other one that I know, okay? And see how are these two related. So remember, if I like cover up this part, what kind of pair are those making? Supplementary, right? Linear pair. So this is like what you did yesterday, right? So what would we do here to solve this? Add and set them equal to what?
180.
180, right? Because they are supplementary. Is that making sense here? Okay, so let's go ahead and solve for x by adding those. So 2x minus 17 plus 63 is equal to 180 degrees. Okay, and now we're going to find the value of x. Okay, so let's combine like terms. What's negative 17 plus 63?
46.
46. All right. And let's go ahead and add. 2x equals 226. Okay. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes. Sorry about that. This should be a positive, right? Thank you. And then this should be a minus. So we should be subtracting. Thank you, Arlene, for catching that. Okay. You get my y out. Okay, so this is not 226. What is this number over here? What was it? What was it that you guys got?
134.
Okay. All right, so then when we divide, what do we get? What was it? 67? Okay. All right. Okay, so now we have our value of x. Okay? All right. Does that make sense on that one, what we did there? Sorry about that little mistake. I'll fix it. I'll make it look prettier over here, okay? There we go. Okay, so here's one that I want you guys to try. This will be the last one we do. I want you guys to work together in your groups to try to see if you can figure it out. Okay, that says 3x minus 33 right there. 3x minus 33.
Since this is a supplementary angle right here, and we didn't have a value for this, so can you just subtract 63 from 180 and find this value? And since this, and then put this equal to its congruent angle. But I got something different than you guys did. I got 72.
All right, so on this one, what I would do first is solve for x. I would set up 2x plus 5 equals the one across from it, 3x minus 33. Okay? These are two congruent angles, right? When you guys solve this, who set that up and solved? What did you guys get when you solved that? What was it? 38, okay? Now, the tricky part on this problem is knowing how to find the y value. Okay, y is a linear pair either with this one or with this one, but do I know the measure of this angle? No. So what I need to do is take this that I found and plug it in here and find what this angle is so I can add it with this one because they're supplementary, right? So when I plug in 38 here, what's 2 times 38? Okay, plus 5? 79. So this whole angle is 79 degrees over here, right? That's the value. So I would get 79 plus 4y minus 1, don't go yet, equals 180. Okay, so write this part down. You would get this, and then you would solve it, right? Okay, and that would give you your value of y. Okay? Do you guys at least have this much written down before you leave? Okay. Your homework is the worksheet posted on School Loop. Okay? I'm sorry I couldn't make you copies today.
My dog, the dogs are coming in the middle of the night. I don't have any dogs.
You are the pet.
You are the pet. I am. I'm the pet. My dog started howling last night. She brought it out of someone's room. So, like, she woke me up and I was like, you know what? She was like, shit.
Okay, guys, really quickly fix this. This is not right. This is 81. 38 times 2 was 76 plus 5 is 81. So this right here should be 81. Okay, so make these changes.